Sorry.
Good morning. Please stand as Reverend Dr. Knowles prays invocation.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who has created man in his own image, we pray today for all those who have died and suffered at the hands of communism. We pray for an end to that scourge upon our world. We ask that you grant us fearlessly to contend against evil, to make no peace with oppression, and that we may reverently use our freedom. Help us to employ it in the maintenance of true justice among men and nations, to the glory of your holy name. Amen.
You may be seated. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, welcome to the 10th annual Roll Call of Nations ceremony, which has been a custom every year for our foundation since President George W. Bush dedicated this memorial 10 years ago. Let me tell you just a little bit about our foundation. The Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit that was authorized by unanimous act of Congress in 1993 to memorialize the victims of communist regimes around the world since 1917 and to educate Americans about the ideology, the history, and the legacy of communism. This past October, we commissioned a poll with YouGov, which found that people under the age of 35 inside the United States are woefully ignorant of basic 20th century history, including the history of some 40 communist regimes around the world who are responsible for the deaths of more than 100 million people. And so we rose to the challenge. We have launched a number of new educational programs, including a national high school teachers seminar, where we bring high school teachers into Washington. We let them meet with dissidents and scholars and familiarize them with our curriculum so that they can go back to the classroom and teach high school students. We've also launched new college and university educational programs, and I'm happy to say we've had more than 100 of those in the last year in all 50 states. We've also done public informational campaigns like 7 ads that we put in Times Square with some of the basic statistics by country and region of innocent people killed as a matter of policy in peacetime by their government. It spawned on Twitter and other social media the hashtag Communism Kills. But for us, it's much more than just a hashtag. Marxism, Leninism is, we consider, a dangerous and deadly ideology that enables totalitarian regimes around the world. And it has no place in a free and prosperous world in which individual rights are respected. And it is because of that truth that we are gathered here today in solidarity at this memorial, a replica of the Goddess of Democracy statue constructed by student protesters in Tiananmen Square in 1989. That is a symbol of the universal love of liberty, the desire for freedom, but also a testament, a reminder that that statue made of plaster was destroyed by tanks and the PLA, People's Liberation Army, that went into the square on June 4th and enacted a massacre. You will have heard, before we began the ceremony, Willie Arteaga here playing his violin. That's a new violin because the one that he was playing on the streets in Venezuela a few weeks ago, and some of you may have seen his image on TV, was broken by the police And so he is a symbol today that even in 2017, a socialist government under Maduro is inching closer and closer to Marxism-Leninism, having passed just a few months ago a law that enables the government to take citizens out of the city, force them to work on farms in the countryside. We would recognize that as some form of collective farming. And the people there in Venezuela, one of the most prosperous countries just a few short decades ago, the people, because of policy, because of their corrupt dictatorial government, have been reduced to eating flamingos and pets. People are dying because they lack basic medical supplies. And so we are in solidarity today also with the people of Venezuela who are on the streets even this very moment, continuing to try and take their government away from the regime of Maduro. But we're also gathered today in solidarity, recognition of the triumph of liberty, represented today especially by our friends from Lithuania and from Estonia, who have proved that the captive nations of the former Soviet Union could once again become free and independent states that now contribute to all that we hold dear in the free world as partners in security and partners in values, respect for freedom and democracy and rule of law. And so I thank you all for joining us today. And for some of you, for example, Incy Bowman, I know, who's been here every year for 10 years. And I know others of you have as well. And so here at the only memorial that we know of that is dedicated to the memory of every victim of communism all around the world, we gather for our 10th annual Roll Call of Nations wreath-laying ceremony and the presentation of our Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom. And now it is my privilege to introduce to you the man without whom this memorial would not be here, the co-founder of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation and chairman of our Board of Trustees, Dr. Lee Edwards.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a beautiful day in Washington, D.C. And a great day to be alive and to be here. You know, skeptics said it was an impossible dream, that we would never be able to build such a memorial. They said, well, maybe a memorial to the victims of capitalism, but not communism. They were wrong. The skeptics said we would never be able to obtain bipartisan support for our memorial. The Republican congressman, the Republican senator were our first co-sponsors, and a Democratic Congress unanimously authorized and a Democratic president signed into law our enabling legislation. The skeptics said we would never be able to negotiate the 24 steps necessary to build a Washington Memorial. 24. It took us 14 years, but we completed every step, including site selection, memorial design, the approval of 3 separate federal commissions. The skeptics said, well, okay, but you'll never be able to raise the necessary funds. But we did, thanks to the generosity of many of the governments which are represented here this morning. And for that, thank you. I particularly want to mention our good friends in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and the Vietnamese American community, which not only raised funds, but they sponsored an international telethon. A telethon itself gave the proceeds from that telethon to us. And I want to recognize the donation of American patriots, Tom Phillips and John Uckley. And particularly, I want to single out the individual who made the largest single contribution. Now, it was in time, and that I'm referring to philosophers to follow his lead. The skeptics said, well, okay, but the people no longer cared about the Cold War. And while we fought in the heat of conflict, dozens of national leaders, including the governments of many of you ambassadors and Soviet affairs who were here this morning, come here. And ethnic American organizations have come here. And they visited the memorial in the past decade to pay their respects, to lay wreaths for the victims in their homeland. The skeptics said, well, maybe all of that. But President George W. Bush will never agree to serve as your honorary sheriff while in the White House. But they were wrong. He did. They said President Bush would never attend our dedication ceremony and accept the memorial on behalf of the American people and all the victims around the world. Well, President Bush not only came, but delivered one of the most eloquent addresses of his presidency. And if you'll allow me, let me share with you just a few words that he said that morning some 10 years ago on this very site. This is President Bush. The men and women who designed this memorial could have chosen an image of repression for this space, a replica of the wall that once divided Berlin, or the frozen barracks of the Gulag, or a killing field littered with skulls. Instead, they chose an image of hope, a woman holding a lamp of liberty. Let our Statue of Liberty, said President Bush. She reminds us that the flame for freedom burns in every human heart, and it is a light that cannot be extinguished by the brutality of terrorists or tyrants. And she reminds us that when an ideology kills tens of billions of people and still ends up being vanquished, it is contending with a power greater than death. She reminds us that freedom is the gift of our Creator. Freedom is the birthright of all humanity. And in the end, freedom will prevail. End quote. Yes, my friends, freedom will prevail. And, yes, one more thing. The skeptics say, well, okay, but you will never build an international museum on communism in Washington, D.C. Well, they were wrong about the memorial and our curriculum on communism and our virtual gulag and our billboard in New York City's Madison Square and our witness videos and our educational rooftops for students and teachers themselves. I confidently predict that sooner rather than later, and with your help and God's guidance, we will celebrate, not far from here, the opening of the International Museum on Communism, an international center of remembrance and research and belief in the power of freedom. Thank you all very much. And now it is my great honor to proceed with the giving of the Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom in the year 2007. Every year since 1999, the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation presents the Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom to men and women who have demonstrated their lifelong opposition to communism and their staunch defense of freedom and democracy around the world. Among the more than 50 freedom fighters whom we have recognized are Václav Havel, Pope John Paul II, Elena Bonner, Lech Walesa, Tom Lantos, William F. Buckley Jr., Joseph Lieberman, Armando Valladares, Wei Jing-sheng, Michael Novak, and Robert Conquest. This year, we honor the Honorable Mark Lahr of Estonia, the historian, prime minister, defense minister, professor, and champion of free markets and free land. As a graduate student and teacher of history in the 1980s, just a student, Lars studied the armed Estonian resistance movement against the Soviet occupation of his country after World War II. The KGB, surprise. The KGB accused him of slandering the Soviet regime and began continuing. But freedom was on the rise in Estonia and throughout Eastern and Central Europe, and the communists backed down and dropped the charges. That very same year, in 1992, Mark Lars' riveting story, Estonia's long guerrilla war against the Red Army, was published as a book entitled War in the Woods. And if you haven't read it, pick it up. It's marvelous. That same year, 1992, Mr. Lars became the Prime Minister of Estonia at the age of 32. And initiated a series of free market reforms, including a flat tax, privatization of government industry that set his country on a path to prosperity. In fact, Estonia became known as the Baltic Tiger. He served as prime minister from 92 to 94 and again from 99 to 2002, always promoting the ideals of free enterprise and a free society. In 2011 to 2012, he was Minister of Defense and led Estonia into NATO and the European Union. He's written extensively about the victims of communism, including his contribution to that seminal work, The Black Book of Communism. And he's the founder of the Foundation for the Investigation of Communist Crimes and the leader of Estonia's successful singing revolution, which helped bring down the Soviet regime. It is therefore my great honor to present the 2017 Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom to Dr. Mark Lars. Accepting the medal for Dr. Lars, who is able to make the long journey from Estonia, is the Deputy Chief of Mission for Estonia, Maria Petrova, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would hereby like to deliver remarks on behalf of Mark Lars. Dear friends, I want to thank you for Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom. This makes me extremely proud and happy, as this is a recognition to my long-lasting commitment to study communist crime and to honor its victims. Estonia and Estonians have lived decades under the rule of this. We know precisely what communism means. This is why our task is not to let it happen again. This demands from all of us to keep memory alive. In this work, we stand side by side with all freedom-loving people around the world. Let's make a museum of communist crimes happen. This is the most certain way to put communists on rash heap of history. Thank you all very much. Again, Mark Lars.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to draw your attention to a save the date in your program on page 7. This November 7th marks the 100th year anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, and we have planned a series of events here in Washington, November 7 through 9. That will include a history and the ideology and the continued legacy of Soviet communism and communism around the world. We'll be very pleased at that occasion on November 9th at a dinner in the main hall of Union Station here to present our Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom to Natan Sharansky and to the Memorial Society in Russia. And we hope that all of you will mark your calendars and plan to attend those events with us. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our guest of honor and our keynote speaker. But first, I would like to mention just two individuals who have done so much to promote our cause of truth, justice, and memory as relates to the history of communism. And that is Yenu Mejishi, sitting here on the front row from Hungary. Please stand. And our very good friend, Manuela Zingeris, who has also received the Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom from Lithuania. And now, I introduce to you Professor Landsbergis. He has served in various capacities working towards the independence of Lithuania for most of his life. First as chairman of the Sejudist movement, then as a signatory of the act of reestablishing the independent state of Lithuania, and finally as the first president of the Supreme Council of Lithuania. After independence, he founded the Homeland Union Christian Democratic Party and served as Speaker of the Seimas. He has also served as a member of the European Parliament. But in another life, Dr. Landsbergis is a scholar of musicology, art, and music history, teaching at the Lithuanian Academy of Music. Professor Landsbergis is the recipient of many honorary degrees, state honors, awards, and prizes from institutions all over the world, including our Truman Reagan Medal of Freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a true freedom fighter and hero of the free world, Professor Landsbergis.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, combatants, we are commemorating here now the countless victims of about 200 years age of a bloody monster whose name is communism. That is a commonly agreed title of the last century's epoch and system of governance, heavily charged for the abrupt of lives of no less than 100 millions of human beings, as they were treated unworthy to live by the then respected and praised ruthless called Führers and great leaders. The numbers of victims are so astonishing that we could agree with the famous definition about no tragedy, only statistics. Anyway, the epoch of practiced mass extermination is not yet over. Remember just the nuclear red fascism somewhere in Southeast Asia, ready to kill new millions around and across the Pacific. This is the first point. No mass or genocidal crime without its criminals. And their names must not stay forgotten. Those were criminal regimes, both communist ones, and states led by such regimes, plus the leaders confident in their right in commerce, or doing anything without limits. But every conviction, even the darkest one, like the red, brown, and black fascism, was and is the product of producers. Just see how they compete for that or another vanity. Do not forget the names, indeed, at least of their rulers, usually the usurpers of state powers. We are approaching them again, and new monuments for bloody dictators are being erected. Just let us look at the imaginary evolution from the beginning of times until the maturing Christian empathy leads to all human compassion, eventually overcoming in a dream all animosities of tribalism for the sake of commonness and mutual help. And then comes again, unfortunately, more than tribalism, of chosen nations and social groups justifying in anger every type of mutual hatred. Some philosophers of consumerist cannibalism used to call it the beehive of progress. Here the party of the first violin and orchestra was played by militant communist ideology and its perpetrators. Smaller but not less bloody offspring defined themselves as Nazi socialists. That was the style of the 20th century. Recently, they acquired followers and assistants in a mushrooming formation of Islamist self-blessed insanity. The mutant communism, including the current Russo-fascism, is going on widely with the same historical mission to destroy the old world of the hated Christianity and democracy. Unifying grounds with Boko Haram, thus commemorating the victims of classical communism, which was a fundamental belief in holy violence, and understanding how that doctrine was successfully used by skillful manipulators of the masses. We must preclude the forthcoming new harvest of ever-born mutant communazis, also under a variety of names. Unfortunately, evil does not exist in abstract form of deliberation. It appears in a concrete stance and deeds of quasi-human soul linked to or obsessed by it. Therefore, until we are able to distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong, remember Solzhenitsyn on dogs. The wolf killer is right, while the human eater is not. Nobody should be entrapped by the idea of total moral conditionality, which allows everything as in the inhuman in Russia would be human as well. Exactly that was in the mind of communist pundits when they told, kill them for the better tomorrow. Kill the infidels, that's the same. Kill the Jews, because they are Jews. All that takes us again to the top of 20th century's mental disaster communism. Paradoxically, while claiming commonness. It promoted fundamental split and confrontation, like my brother, my enemy, class enemy, mental, religion, or racial enemy. What is the difference? No idea that only the eye of our common Father could make us brothers. Remember John Paul II addressing that view to millions of Muslims. Or if you prefer, only the light in our souls and not the darkness could bring us better guidances. This is the symbol of life. Under communism, darkness of animosity was government. As I call everybody to understand that the main victim of the plague of communism was the entire humanity. But individual torture caused sufferings and functional humanity should be brought to light as well. What to say about the survivors who helplessly saw their children dying? Just take mass deportations waged on innocent people by communist chiefs and perpetrators. We in the Baltic states remember and perceive it very well. Knowledge is yet to be brought about terms and mentality. Punishment used to be executed for your social status, along with low incomes of the foreign country. Expulsion of socially allied elements. This forward included the reasons of punishment for nothing. Similarly, like for wearing glasses in Cambodia of red masks, or generally, along with Marxist invention of social racism, those earmarked as grown class, their sentences in advance, automatic. Extermination and slavery via deportation was the norm. The executioner in all cases was the Soviet state, what means its highest officials, like Stalin, Beria, etc., plus ordinary sadistic butchers. None of those exiled deported victims were even formally tried and sentenced. When taken in the nations of 1941, about 41% of victims were children under the age of 16. Out of all deportees, only 33% returned to Lithuania. The rest, 67, did not. Nevertheless, there still are political and juridical thinkers in the West insisting that that was not genocide. Compare with political prisoners of that time. They, I quote an official conclusion, we had to be either deported or, in case deportation was in